Hey everybody, HomeSliceHenry here, and in today's video, we're looking to have some fun in the Open Master League. Today, I'm running a Master League team so spicy that my opponents won't know what hit them. For the team, I'm running Terrakion on the lead. I have Steelwing Dragonite as the safe switch, hoping to potentially punish some fairy types, and as the closer, I have the Razor Leaf for Kartana. It goes without saying, I do not recommend this team for climbing Elo, but against all odds, I was able to have a 10-10 run with the team at leaderboard Elo versus some of the best battlers in the world. So without further ado, let's hop into the matches. Hopping into the first match, picking up a Nightmare lead, we see Terrakion into Zygarde. I'm going to save switch into the Steelwing Dragonite, and the opponent is going to stay in this matchup. Zygarde is a massive problem for this entire team, but landing that Dragon Claw is a good first step. This is definitely going to be a game where I'm going to need a lot of charge moves to get rid of the Zygarde. Opponent tries to go for a Dragon Claw catch onto Solgaleo. Unfortunately, not able to bait out a Fairy type here, but the good news is I definitely needed to bait out this Solgaleo, as Solgaleo would absolutely obliterate the Grass Steel type Kartana in the back. I get to land the back-to-back superpowers. I'm going to send in Terrakion, and Terrakion, I'm going to shield the first move here in case they go for the Iron Head, but my opponent baits with a Psychic Fangs, and I immediately regret that shield. I'm now going to be firing off the Sacred Sword. Opponent commits the shield, so they are definitely looking to get some damage onto Terrakion. I decide to double shield, and it's another Psychic Fangs bait. They're only going to make it to a Psychic Fangs here, but I'm now double debuffed, so this is going to do some solid damage. I continue to farm. Opponent is going to send back in the Zygarde, and I'm firing off this Sacred Sword. Sacred Sword is going to get some nice chip damage onto the Zygarde. I'm going for another Sacred Sword, and then it's Kartana time. I have no shields left for the Kartana, so I'm in trouble. In comes Kartana. Opponent sends in their final Pokemon, which is Shadow Rhyperior. Shadow Rhyperior gets absolutely melted by Razor Leafs. Opponent was not prepared for the Kartana. Kartana Razor Leafs down a Zygarde, and we take the win. We see a terrible lead in the next match, Terrakion into Xerneas. I'm going to save switch into the Steelwing Dragonite. Dragonite still doesn't have an amazing matchup here, but at the very least, I've done some incredibly nice chip damage onto the Zern. Zern goes for the Moonblast. Opponent going to send in Dialga. Steelwing does have faster energy generation than Dragon Breath, but of course, it does a lot less fast move damage. I'm going to bait with the Dragon Claw. Opponent calls it. And if at first you don't succeed, I'm baiting again. This bait gets the shield. I make it to the superpower. Let's see if my opponent is familiar with the Steelwing counts. They are not. Superpower connects, and I'm able to win switch. If they send in the Xerneas, which they do, I immediately switch into Kartana. I need to get this Razor Leaf damage off. Opponent is not at the back-to-back close combats here. They're close, but they don't have it. Close combat is shielded in the back. Oh my goodness, it's Kyogre. I'm going for the Night Slash here, fishing for a potential attack boost. Night Slash does not get the boost. Kartana continuing to farm. Kartana is absurdly glassy. This is a resisted Surf, and it nearly KOs, but Kartana is able to hang on, make it to the Leaf Blade, take down the Kyogre, and one Razor Leaf will secure the win versus Xerneas. Hopping into the next match, we see a bit of a surprise on the lead, Terrakion into Garchomp. I can't remember the last time that I've seen a Garchomp in the Master League. As of late, the only Dragon and Ground-type Pokemon that I see is Zygarde. Zygarde is absolutely everywhere on the leaderboards if you're playing the Open Master League. They do have enough for the Outrage, I respect it with a shield, and I get baited with a Sand Tomb. That feels absolutely awful. I'm farming up, and to add insult to injury, they catch the Dragon Claw onto their Solgaleo. So it looks like the opponent is running their version of what is probably one of the more common cores in the Master League right now. Typically, it's going to be Zygarde and Solgaleo, but this trainer doesn't have the Zygarde, so they are running Garchomp. They farmed up a ton of energy on the Solgaleo. Iron Head connects, and that does quite a lot of damage. I still have the back-to-back superpowers loaded, going for superpower number 1. Opponent commits the shield. I'm going to save energy for later and pivot back into Terrakion. Opponent goes for the Iron Head. Terrakion able to withstand that damage. Terrakion farming up and going to be firing off the Sacred Sword. Sacred Sword is going to deal some solid chip damage. I continue to farm, and it looks like that is a CMP tie, and Terrakion wins CMP. Sacred Sword picks up the knockout. In the back, oh no, trainer. They have Rhyperior in the back, get absolutely deleted by Razor Leaf. This is not enough for Rock Wrecker. It's only going to be a Breaking Swipe. Breaking Swipe is going to connect. I switch into the Dragonite. Opponent unable to Mudshot down, and they resign the match. Moving into the next match, leading Terrakion into Shadow Dragonite. I do have a Rock Slide, and I'm a Rock type, but this is still a bit of a tough matchup for Terrakion, because the Shadow Dragon Breaths absolutely shred through Terrakion. Terrakion is not the tankiest. Honestly, neither is Kartana, so the fact that I was able to go 10-10 with this team at Leaderboard Elo is still wild to me. I do successfully bait with the Sacred Sword. They go for the Dragon Claw. You know what? I'm going for another Dragon Claw bait here. They're a Shadow. Shadow Dragonites love to shield, and they do. I continue to farm up with the Terrakion. I'm a little worried that if I shield and try and go for Rock Slide, they're going to catch it, so I decide to just let this go. I send in the Dragonite. Dragonite farming up. My opponent is able to make it to the move just before I get there. Dragon Claw is going to connect. I'm firing off my own Dragon Claw. Opponent is going to catch onto a Mewtwo. This is looking very, very tough. I'm going to send in Kartana. Kartana, these Razor Leafs are absolutely shredding through the Mewtwo. I only have one shield left, but I'm going to have to use it here as a Shadow Ball would just KO. They go for the Side Strike. Do they get to another? They do not. Okay, maybe there's a chance, but that Shadow Dragonite is still pretty healthy. I'm looking to overfarm as much as I can and fire off the Night Slash. I need this to KO. Night Slash doesn't KO. I Razor Leaf down in the back. It's Groudon, and due to the overfarm, I'm able to make it to the Razor Leaf. The energy management on Kartana. Leaf Blade gets the knockout on the Groudon, and we take the win. Picking up an amazing lead in the next match, Terrakion into Hisuian Avalugg. But the opponent save switches into Solgaleo, and this is a problem. I'm forced to stay in here. My backline does not want to see Solgaleo. I continue to farm up with the Terrakion. A little bit of lag there, but thankfully I'm able to catch back up, and it looks like it is a CMP tie Sacred Sword to their move. I can tank it even if it is an Iron Head, and it is. I'm going to continue to farm up here. Little bit of lag again. Oh my goodness, come on game. And I am going to switch into the Dragonite. Dragonite going to be hit with the Psychic Fangs. Is it possible to Steel Wing farm down here? It looks like I might actually be able to get a farm down. Solgaleo going to fire off another Psychic Fangs. They're going to send in Kyogre, so my opponent is very, very weak to Steel Wing Dragonite in the back. I fire off the Superpower, they commit the shield. Superpower does do slightly more than Dragon Claw, but of course it does come with the cost of debuffing your attack. So my opponent, your defense and your attack, it debuffs both of them, but I'm very happy to see the Kyogre, as now I get to send in Kartana. Believe it or not, I'm shielding a resisted move here on Kartana. That's how glassy Kartana is. Kartana is going to get the farm down, and my opponent is going to send in the Avalugg, and look at the Razor Leafs go. Kartana on an absolute rampage. They're going to be going for the Icy Wind. I will respect it with a shield. Can I get the farm down here? Come on, Kartana. Kartana gets the farm down. The Razor Leaf transfers onto the Solgaleo, and that's a win. We see a tough lead in the next match, Terrakion into Groudon. This is a very bad matchup for Terrakion. I'm going to stay in, however. I'm going to look to get some chip damage and then hopefully catch a move onto the Steel Wing Dragonite. I fire off the Sacred Sword. I'm going to throw 2 double kicks, wait a turn, switch into the Dragonite, and catch a move, hoping it's the Precipice Blades, but it's not. It's the Fire Punch. Opponent now going to send in Meloetta. So the opponent running a pretty cool team. Steel Wing not doing me a lot of favors here, as of course Steel Wing on Dragonite is going to do way less fast move pressure compared to Dragon Breath that gets same type attack bonus. I'm firing off another Dragon Claw. Opponent is going to let this through. If it's a Psyshock, I will be able to survive this damage, so I'm going to let that go, and it is the Psyshock. My opponent is going to have to throw a move here, otherwise I will make the Dragon Claw, and they do exactly that. They are going to fire off some energy. Psyshock is going to get the knockout. I send in Terrakion. I really don't want to take a Psyshock, so I am going to go for the Sacred Sword. Sacred Sword is going to get the knockout, but the opponent can send back in the Groudon, and the Groudon, of course, does have energy. They're waiting their timer here. Opponent actually sends in Xerneas instead. I send in my Kartana. Kartana is going to have to shield with the Fire Punch. Is Groudon going to be able to make it to a second Fire Punch here? Groudon gets KO'd as they make it to the move, and this game looks winnable. I'm farming up, and I'm firing off the Night Slash, fishing for a potential boost. Night Slash shielded up by the Xerneas. I do not get the boost, and they're going to be going for the close combat. I think I have to save the shield for Terrakion and hope against hope that I can make it to double Sacred Sword. I'm farming up quite a lot of energy here. Opponent is going to be going for the close combat. Close combat is shielded. Okay, I'm going for the Sacred Sword. I need them to not be at the move now. Sacred Sword is shielded, but they get to the move. We fall 1 double kick short. Close combat KOs Terrakion, and we lose that game. Picking up a pretty decent lead in the next match, Terrakion into Dialga. Dialga does have the ability to win the Zero Shield, as of course one Sacred Sword not going to be enough to knock out, whereas an Iron Head plus a Dragon Breath would. But as the Terrakion, you can pretty safely go for a Sacred Sword, one shield farm down, and exit with a massive amount of energy. And energy from Terrakion does pretty well into a lot of things. Opponent, get a safe switch into Rhyperior. Oh no, and Rhyperior getting torn to shreds by the Kartana. They only make it to the Breaking Swipe, so now I am going to be debuffed. Are they going to send in the Dialga here? They do, but Dialga is too low. That's getting Razor Leaf down by Kartana. In the back, it's Hisui and Avalugg, and I'm going to start firing off these Night Slashes and fishing for a boost. Night Slash gets shielded. I do not get the boost. Opponent no longer wants to play out the game, and they resign the match. We see a very tough lead in the next match, Terrakion into Mewtwo. I'm going to save switch into the Steel Wing Dragonite. Again, I have faster energy generation from Steel Wing, but I am missing the fast move pressure in this matchup quite a bit. I'm looking to overfarm and go for the Dragon Claw just before my opponent is able to make it to Side Strike number 2. Dragon Claw is going to be no-shielded. I don't have a great way to farm down in this matchup, so we definitely see the limitations of Steel Wing in this particular match. Again, I'm looking to farm. Opponent makes a nice catch. They catch onto an Ursaluna. That's something that I haven't seen in quite some time in the Master League. Quick energy generation from Steel Wing. I make the Superpower, and this is going to hurt. Superpower connects. I send in the Terrakion. I'm looking for the farm down. Opponent makes a move, but Tackle does not generate energy very quickly, so that's not enough for a high horsepower. It is just going to be the Thunder Punch. If they send in the Mewtwo, Mewtwo is pretty low. I can probably get a knockout with the Sacred Sword. In comes the Mewtwo, and they have energy. I'm fine with expending the final shield, because I can get 2 shields back from the Mewtwo if they want to get rid of the Terrakion. So I'm firing off the Sacred Sword. Sacred Sword is going to be no-shielded by the Mewtwo. In the back, they have Groudon. Groudon with 2 shields is quite scary because they're going to be able to get a massive amount of energy, and of course a Fire Punch will absolutely destroy my poor Kartana. They no-shield the first Sacred Sword. I'm going for Sacred Sword number 2. This time, they will respect it with a shield. I continue to farm. Opponent has to go for Precipice Blades to get a knockout, and this is going to require a catch. I'm going to send in the Kartana, and I'm going to need to catch onto the Dragonite. In comes the Kartana. I throw a couple Razor Leafs, switch into the Dragonite, and despite the lag that happens, I get the catch. They undercharge it. They're looking for the farm down. They get some energy, but they don't get enough, and Kartana takes the game. We've got a big core breaker on the lead in the next match, Terrakion into Palkia. I'm going to be staying in this matchup because I can't really afford to send in the Steel Wing Dragonite either. So I'm just going to stay in here and start spamming out Sacred Swords. Sacred Sword number 1 is going to connect. I'm able to make it to Sacred Sword number 2. This will not knock out, but it will get Palkia extremely low. Sacred Sword connects. Palkia going to go for the Aqua Tail. I have a choice to make here. I decide to commit a shield. So I am going to go for Switch Advantage, and I leave us some energy on Terrakion. My opponent is going to send in Groudon. Okay. I'm firing off this Sacred Sword. I would love to be able to switch out at some point, but I think I kind of have to stay in here and just play this out with the Terrakion. Terrakion going for another Sacred Sword. Sacred Sword is going to be shielded up by my opponent. I continue to farm. Opponent is now in a position where they're going to be hit with another Sacred Sword here. Sacred Sword is going to be shielded. I send in the Dragonite. In the back, it's going to be Dialga. And this is just a win. All I have to do is Superpower, send in the Kartana, shield up the Draco Meteor, and this game is won. And against all odds, despite that terrible lead, I'm in a good spot. But you're going to see I let it go. It's a resisted move, but it's a Kartana that KOs. All I had to do there was shield, and the game was won. But now I'm in trouble. In comes the Groudon. I decide to shield. It's the Fire Punch bait. And they have the Precipice Blades. It's double resisted, but it will knock out. So many mistakes in that end game. And what should have been a win ends up being a loss. All right, hopping into the final match. We see one final Mewtwo lead. I'm going to save switch into the Steel Wing Dragonite. Opponent going to send in Zacian, but guess what, Zacian? This is a Steel Wing Dragonite. So they are taking super effective damage. I go for the Dragon Claw. That, of course, is double resisted. That's not doing a whole lot. My opponent is going to be firing off energy. I'm going to commit a shield. It's the Play Rough. I'm going to farm up with the Dragonite and go for the Superpower. I'm hoping that this is going to be enough to KO. This is only single resisted. Superpower does get the knockout, and I'm able to win switch. Is my opponent going to send back in the Mewtwo? Yes, they do. Mewtwo going to let me make it to the Dragon Claw here. Dragon Claw is going to connect. It's debuffed, so it's not really going to do a lot of damage. They overfarm, and I'm able to make it to yet another Dragon Claw. The speed of Steel Wing, surprising this opponent a little bit. They have a massive amount of energy on the Mewtwo. I'm just going to let this through. Side Strike is going to pick up the knockout. I send in Kartana, and now I have a choice. I decide to let this through. This is going to do so much damage. The Shadow Ball nearly one-shots. In the back, it's Dialga, and I have Terrakion. And Terrakion can win this down a shield. So if I have one shield and they have two, I can win this as Terrakion. So the decision to not shield the Kartana looks to actually be a game-winning one. I'm now at the back-to-back Sacred Swords before they can make it to an Iron Head. Sacred Sword number 1 gets the shield, and Sacred Sword number 2 is going to get the knockout onto Dialga. Oh my goodness, that game looked incredibly doomed in the middle, but we're able to take the win. As I mentioned at the start, this is absolutely not a team that I would recommend for climbing. I threw this team together just because there were 3 individual mons that I wanted to run, and this team is not something that I would recommend if you're looking to climb. My results with it, a lot of the time, were on leaderboards. People have really optimized how they play against meta Pokemon. So sometimes, if you're running something that they're just unexpecting, like in this case, Terrakion, Kartana, and a Steel Wing Dragonite, people can make uncharacteristic misplays that you're able to take advantage of. So again, I had some pretty fun sets with the team, going 10-10 overall at Leaderboard Elo. I'm ecstatic with for how spicy of a team it is. But yeah, as I mentioned, not a team that I would recommend for climbing because, man, if it goes wrong, it goes very wrong. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. If you're enjoying the content, make sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't. And a special thank you as always to our members here on YouTube. The support you guys provide is sincerely appreciated. So thank you guys oh so very much. And until next time, I've been HomeSliceHenry.